When the Canucks miss the playoffs again.
When Jim Benning trades away all our picks.
When Goldalden is scratched for the third game in a row. C4 is there. With Sedin-like vision, Horvat's work ethic, and Petey's electric personality. Here comes the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast with Chris, Matt, Anna, and Adam.
Powered by Overtime Media.
Welcome to another episode of the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast. This is Chris at Lightforce, joined virtually by Anna Forsyth at aforsyth03, Matt Lee at mattlee_61, and Adam Omenel-Carter at AdamFOC are not here. But as I had led off, we are recording virtually because with the current pandemic shutting down much of the country, and specifically the city of Vancouver, we no longer had access to the hotbox. Plus, as a podcast that always encourages social distancing and complains when we get close together in a confined space, we didn't really need the excuse to do this.
No, I mean, Matt and Adam have social distance away from us. Maybe even from each other, which is unthinkable for them, but we're here.
Well, that's because you and I care.
We do care. We do care. So even though we're not staring at each other's faces, we're still live.
And that's what's interesting is that we did find a solution to not only make this happen, but make this happen so that our patrons could still tune in, listen to the episode live before having to wait for the final product to be produced and go live on Tuesday. So if you're listening to this now, we are recording Monday evening as we normally would. And we don't have a whole lot of hockey to talk about per se, outside of one Vancouver Canucks result, but there has been a lot going on in the world that's impacted hockey. So I think we're going to take a spell sort of chatting a little bit about that, you and I.
Yeah, I feel like at least this episode, there's still some sensible stuff to talk about. We have one game of Canucks hockey and then some pretty serious issues, but yeah, however long this break lasts, it might get more and more off the rails, but hopefully that's okay. Well,
I'd like to point out that I think one of the last episodes that you and I did together, the feedback on Canucks Reddit was skipped through to the interview between Matt and friend of the show, Cam Robinson, because it was like crap. So for those of you who have tuned in and you're already upset that it's a Chris Anna show, I apologize. We didn't intend for the season to end as abruptly as it did.
No, that's not our fault. Also, you know what? Instead of taking it as an insult to us, I'm just going to take it as a compliment to Cam Robinson because he's super smart and they just couldn't wait to get to his interview.
That's true. That is a positive way to look at it. And in the sort of the state of the world today, positivity is definitely something that has struggled to provide enough supply of that, and toilet paper, which I still can't quite wrap myself around. That toilet paper is what everyone needs to survive. Like, I get that.
Around, that's good punning there.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, TP is nice to have, but like the fact that even the single ply sandpaper that's made out of recycled cardboard is selling out right now, that shows you how badly people are concerned and suffering from anxiety. It's just amazing. But I'm pretty sure no one's tuned into this episode to hear us talk a little bit about the shortage of toilet paper on the shelves of stores. So why don't we go straight into a rewind? As I mentioned, we got a result to talk about. The Vancouver Canucks did play one game since the last episode. And, we were chatting prior to clicking record and thought it would behoove us not to talk about that result.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to. And what a game. It is funny that not quite anticipating the severity of the situation, I was quite annoyed with how long that game took to watch. It kind of took up my whole evening. And now, I don't think I'd ever complain about that again.
Well, just as the game was going on in game chat here in Discord, there was multiple references to the game being the type of hockey that Chris likes, where defense seemed to be optional, Goals were being scored. Opportunities were being had. Demko, having had a few rough games, was doing everything that he could possibly do in some situations to get that result as well. But for those who somehow missed the score, and I get you may have thought, oh, it'll lots of Canucks action over the course of the week, I'll catch up. The Vancouver Canucks won in a shootout 5-4.
Yeah. High event hockey, Chris.
I'm all about high event hockey. I know it's a joke, and part of our podcast lore about how if given the opportunity, Chris would rather see an exciting loss than a boring win. That's not what I'm trying to convey. It's just I like high event hockey. I like hockey where I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm engaged throughout the game. And that could very well be like a 1-0 score, but it's where, it could go either way at any point. Like it's like being invested in a good book or in a good show or a good movie, right? Like you want to be not only entertained, but you want to be engaged throughout. I really don't want to see boring hockey. So when I see a game like this one, which, was kind of crazy, all things considered, I was quite happy.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the kind of hockey I want to say day in, day out, because I just don't think my heart can take it, but given we've got a long break to get over it, I'm fine. It's just not really sustainable in the long haul to play that defense like that, but yeah, that's my major concern as Mars and Vandenberg, honestly.
The other thing that we need to consider is that win could have huge implications to whether or not the Vancouver Canucks make the NHL postseason, presuming there is an NHL postseason. We'll talk more about that when we get into half full, half empty. But the Vancouver Canucks, prior to that game, were on the outside looking in. And by getting that win, found themselves, based on record, getting into the essentially third-ish spot. I guess I could say ish because it's a whole lot of science now that's going to determine whether or not teams make the postseason, presuming a regular season doesn't return. But it also showed that the Vancouver Canucks were able to arrest what I could best describe as a slide.
Yeah, I guess that's positive in some respects, because it did seem like Canucks were having a bad old time for a little while there. But it's just, we never know now whether it was a blip or not, because that was all she wrote for the regular season right now, so.
Well, and that is true. I mean, we had obviously thought that the NHL would be continuing. In fact, I had tickets to go to a game this week. And, that's not happening for obvious reasons. But, thinking about the state of the Vancouver Canucks, to again try to grasp at the possibility of positives that might exist, we have a team that now has the opportunity to get healthy. Now, I know the Vancouver Canucks aren't the only team that could be putting this break to use, but Chris Tanev was likely, heading to the shelf. Now he's getting an opportunity to heal and potentially come back for, what we hope is some, good NHL hockey. And we talk about this in sort of because we just don't know what will happen. Obviously, there's, on a daily basis, the state of the world is changing. But, I think if anything, the Vancouver Canucks can use this as an opportunity to get better, get stronger, get Markstrom back on the ice, and ultimately become that team we sort of saw, early to mid of the season, where they were almost winning to spite themselves. Whereas now they look like a really good team, but they were struggling to actually win.
Yeah, I think, Tanev, it would be a big deal getting him back healthy, but Markstrom is just, if we can't get him back healthy, even if we start right in the playoffs, I don't see us winning a series without him, honestly.
You sort of mentioned Fantenberg earlier. I mean, the Canucks' depth on the blue line is a little bit less. Having Tanev out of the lineup, elevates players like Vandenberg, who has struggled in some way, shape, or form. But, putting things into perspective, we are looking at a Vancouver Canucks blue line that, I'll, go back a few years where we had the Bulldog being put into roles that, quite frankly, he did as best as he could in them. But at no point in time were we looking at him, being a second liner or first line blue liner. So, having Tanev out long term is problematic for the Canucks team who relies on his reliability when he is healthy, but also his steadfast leadership. I mean, he leads by example.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true, and we've talked about Hughes being able to be Hughes because of who Tanev is, and he lets kind of Hughes play the game he does. So I think it's massive. I do think, Tanev was playing these games that we were so concerned about the defense. I do think Vandenberg and Myers is just a pair of nightmares. So, whatever happens whenever we come back, I really don't want to see that again. I really don't think Vandenberg was that bad when he wasn't with Myers. Am I wrong?
Well, I can't speak with too much confidence, saying there's been a lot of Canucks hockey that I missed as I was traveling in the UK. Then I was in Toronto, and I got to see one game when I was in Toronto because it happened to be was it Hockey Night in Canada? Not Hockey Night in Canada. What's the Sunday version?
I don't know. Hometown hockey?
Hometown hockey, yeah. It was hometown hockey, so it became a nationally televised game. So I actually got to see it when I was in Toronto.
So you stayed up past your bedtime?
Oh, way past my bedtime to watch that one. And I can't say I thought too highly of his play, but that wasn't to suggest that I thought equally too poorly. It was just a matter of someone trying to get the job done, and great. I still feel that, losing Tanev at this point in the season would have put the Canucks at some level of difficulty. Even though Markstrom was sort of back on the ice and there was the possibility that he might have returned, we would have to have probably considered he needed a few more, I'd say a few more weeks, but maybe a few more days. So again, this break is almost, and I hate to sort of, again, draw as positive, it's conveniently allowing the Vancouver Canucks to tend to those wounds. There's no guarantee a Tanev comes back, but this gets the Vancouver Canucks closer to maybe the return of a Markstrom, for instance.
Yeah, and as I say, I think that'll be huge. I mean, we were lucky to get, 3/4 of a season with Tanev in, and pretty much healthy. That's very unusual for him. So, it had to be something, didn't it? Whether it was an injury or a pandemic or both, we knew we weren't going to get a full 82 games of Tanev, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and interestingly enough, it is possible that with this stoppage, that this could be the first "quote unquote" season that Chris Tanev, gets all games in. There won't be an 82 game season at this point,
right? But it's technically a full season. He plays all the games that was available.
Hey, if the Houston Astros can win a World Series and cheat, as far as I'm concerned, the asterisk matters very little.
Yeah, I mean that asterisk 100%. Not to go off the rails, but I'm going to. Say miracle of miracles happens and Canucks win the cup this year. Is there an asterisk for you?
No. Sure. Okay, let me rephrase that. Whether or not I feel there is an asterisk, it matters little to me. There will be an asterisk in Wikipedia, in the NHL Almanac, ultimately identifying that there was fewer games played. But as far as I'm concerned, a Stanley Cup is a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I agree. And we talked about the Astros before. We don't want to take a Stanley Cup by cheating. That's our line for sure. But, we played 69 games. Nice. So, it's almost a full season, right?
Well, and if the NHL were to resume hockey, I mean, there's a variety of different play, but one of the ones that I just sort of was reading about today was where there would be like 24 teams that make the playoffs, and the first, I think it was the first like 16 teams get a bye, or maybe it was the first like 12 teams get a bye. I can't remember which the number was. And then the remaining teams then have like sort of a play-in tourney to determine the actual playoff seeding before they go into actual playoff hockey. So functionally, with some craziness like that, I think it is fair to say there would have to be some form of asterisk. But playoff hockey is a different level of play. If you can go through some crazy contraption of a playoff format where there is a playoff play-in tournament, and in turn then go through playoff hockey, and that's 4 rounds beyond the play-in tournament, and you get to lift the Stanley Cup above your head at the end of that, as far as I'm concerned, that actually is almost harder than
the asterisk
a full regular season.
Double plus, right? Double
Exactly.
Stanley Cup. Yeah, I mean, obviously the preface being, the asterisk to that asterisk is depends when hockey comes back, right? Depends when we get like playoffs at all. Never mind playing tournament. Depends when we get the season at all. I know, like, obviously football's different. They don't have playoffs, but like, most leagues are talking about writing off this whole season.
Yeah. Well, and again, we'll get into more about the season as a whole in half with everything that's going on. But any other thoughts about what we saw about the Vancouver Canucks before we went into this break, either from the Islanders game or anything that feel was worth mentioning?
Just that I was right. Shootouts are great.
I don't like shootouts. You know what? And I know what I want is even crazier. Like, I love 3-on-3 hockey. Give me as much of that as you possibly can on a silver platter. But I again, what I suggest is crazy. Like, if I come out there and say, "Oh, give me 10 minutes of 3-on-3," people are like, "What the heck? I'd rather shootout." But see, I just feel the shootout is almost anticlimactic. Like, I get that it's exciting, but I prefer to see the play on the ice. But that's just me. I mean, Nexus in patron chat there is saying 3-on-3 for 10 minutes. I'm not entirely sure about the tie. I kind of, again, I'm all about the crazy ideas. I would love 3 points for a regulation win.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
And then you get into overtime, and it's now you're playing for that additional point. I prefer there not to be a tie per se, but if there had to be, at least make the regulation win matter with 3 points. So, it could be 3-2-1 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Or just 2-0, but
yeah, I mean,
either way,
none of these bonus points.
No loser points. But I don't know. I love a shootout because I'm just like, I watched 65 minutes of hockey. It didn't work out. Let's go to shootout.
Yeah. So before we get into half full, half empty, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Athletic?
Yeah. We've told you about this so many times before, but I really hope you guys are tuning in and subscribing to the Athletic. It is the best content, and really, in these trying times, it's keeping us going. The nerds at the Athletic, they don't need to get out in the world. They can just put up some great articles, even with the social distancing. In fact, I think they prefer it that way. Thomas Drance already today put out an article about 8 Canucks issues during the COVID-19 suspension. So they're keeping us entertained. There's going to be content from all around the league. There's Canuck stuff, obviously, but there's other articles. Justin Bourne has written an article just about like lingering questions from the season and how that might be affected by the suspension. Sean McKindo's written something just a little more fun, remembering my worst power rankings of the season, which, we need to laugh in these times. So everyone needs to get onto theathletic.com patreon.com/overtime, and then you get a huge 40% discount when you do a year subscription. So, we don't have hockey. Just read about hockey. There'll be some great reflective pieces coming up, I think. A lot of nostalgic pieces too. So, jump on theathletic.com/overtime. That's all lowercase, by the way. Get your 40% subscription and, read about hockey while you can't watch it.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? And that because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He didn't play. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And, yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
I felt it prudent to skip the F word. I mean, I guess if there was an F word, it'd be, F COVID-19 disease like that. Itself is, I think is without question, but that isn't much of a segment if that's all we say. And so instead, we're going to go down to a 2-segment episode here where we, kicked off with Rewind, and now we're going to talk about Half Empty, which is our odds and ends, bits and bobs segment, as every episode might be. Now, what are we going to talk about? We are going to talk about the coronavirus disease. We're going to talk about COVID-19 disease. Again, I comes by a variety of different names, but ultimately its impact worldwide has been significant. So significant that nearly all major sports have shut down. And I say nearly all because I believe there might still be one or two. It's hard for me to determine this. I was watching rugby this weekend, and it seemed like it was live.
Okay. I know the Six Nations has been shut down for a while, being as Italy is one of the members. That's been
It was England and Wales that were playing.
Yeah. Then it will probably be old Six Nations because they're not playing Six Nations anymore.
And see, that's the difficulty. I get up on the weekend in the morning, and one of my routines, in previous years, getting up on Saturday or Sunday, I was flipping over to TSN and watching soccer. Right, that was my routine since Premier League's been on DAZN, and I'm just not sold on subscribing to that over-the-top service for just that, because I'm not that invested in the Premier League. I still, flip it around and I find something. Well, obviously, with sports no longer in existence, here I am, I flip to TSN, there's rugby. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll turn this on. And I watched it. Now, it could have been like a best of, but it didn't matter to me because it was new, but I watched it. But again, this goes to the point that all major sports have shut down. It sort of started off with restrictions happening. You had the NBA that had talked about playing in empty buildings. We saw was it the Champions League? I think they had played a couple matches in empty buildings. So
yeah, because I think Italy went first behind closed doors, then Germany. So there was Champions League games. Yeah,
but then you had an NBA player get diagnosed as testing positive for COVID-19 disease. And that kicked off a series of dominoes. The NBA made the decision to postpone that game indefinitely. They did not actually start it. And then that evening made the decision as a league to simply shut down. They had made the decision to shut down, I believe it was for 2 weeks. And then you started to see other leagues make similar decisions. Major League Baseball chose to, at first they were going to relocate games, and then they decided to end their preseason, and now they've just postponed their season indefinitely. You had, I'll use the Canadian Football League as an example, shutting down their tryouts and their training camps. You had Major League Soccer shut itself down. And eventually the NHL followed suit. They made the decision to also shut themselves down as opposed to to playing in empty buildings. But this is uncharted territory, at least, for us within what we would know as the current era. I can't remember a time where all sports were gone. Like 9/11 might be the closest where we saw the world. Well, it was actually only for a few days, all things considered. Like, yeah, the effects were felt for a couple of weeks, but things started to spin back up once the planes got in the air again. This is completely uncharted. Like, I guess the only other thing I could think of off the top back to like World War II.
Right. And then, that suspended a lot of sports for a while. And then I think Spanish flu that in the early 1900s also shut down an NHL season.
But this is the thing, like where we're stretching right now, we're talking about just the shutdown, like a season, like the NHL season. Like the NHL itself is shut down due to lockouts, unfortunately. We've seen that take place. But okay, so we're not able to watch NHL hockey. Well, if you're a sports fan, I could watch soccer, I could watch cricket, I could watch rugby, basketball, football, NASCAR, golf. The PGA at one point thought, oh, well, we'll just continue to play golf and we just won't let, fans onto the golf course and we're pretty safe. And then they came to their senses, nah, you know what? Let's not, play with fire here. We're going to shut down. But now we're in a position of uncharted territory. We don't know what the future holds. Like you look at the CDC in the United States, the Center for Disease Control, and they have now I don't think it was mandated, but they requested that people get together in groups no larger than 50 for 8 weeks. That's 2 months. And if we're doing the math, that would mean if that were to occur, no resumption of what we would know in North America as professional sports until the middle of May.
Right. And I think, I'm not saying that's conservative. I don't want to fearmonger when I don't actually know what I'm talking about. But, they've talked about May to June being the peak of this. So I think we're looking at least May before anything happens.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, speaking of cricket, cricket was one of the last sports to give up the ghost. They only awarded the Sheffield Shield, which is the Australian domestic competition, today because they decided that they weren't going to get to play at the final. And they just awarded it to, the far and away leaders who are New South Wales, which is interesting, right? Like that kind of predictive awarding, just the fact that they thought, oh, no one's going to catch up.
It is amazing. I mean, I get that. Again, it's sort of back to my earlier points, uncharted territory. It's interesting to sort of watch this all take place, where decisions were being made by some sports federations that sort of was contradictory to others. I'll actually use the NFL right now. Technically speaking, the NFL hasn't shut down. Like the NFL has said, oh, we're not adjusting dates, and they're still going through free agency right now. There was a big trade earlier today. Like it seems to be that the NFL is like, yeah, this will all blow over.
I mean, they have such short seasons anyway. Well, at least game wise, I guess they're reluctant to go and decide right now. When does the first game usually get played?
Well, so the NFL season doesn't kick off really until the fall, but training camp and combines, preparation to actually play, it starts pretty much spring. I get from the perspective of any league, the NFL is sort of in a good position where they're able to go and say, yeah, well, we're not too worried because the world will have figured things out by then. But without sort of delaying activity, it requires teams and organizations to react to the uncertainty. So case in point, you're in a competitive league and you're now being told that the season will continue and it won't adjust and the dates are the same and I need to scout players, but I can't travel or I can't go, or do I run this risk of trying to there is stuff that can still be done online. You could pick up a phone, you can get on a video conference, but ultimately, I want to see this. I want to see this kid play. I want to see this player try out. I want them to actually, show me their skill. Well, again, we're introducing situations that seem to be contradictory to what health authorities are telling us to do. Social distancing, self-isolate if you're feeling unwell, reduce unnecessary excursions, travel, what have you. So, where the NFL exists, they're kind of, almost trying to, I don't know how to describe it any differently, but sort of stick their head under the carpet and hope everything goes away.
Right. Yeah. I'm guessing there's a lot of behind the scenes prep in case it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because that doesn't seem like the best plan to just hope it goes away. I guess, if things get back up and running by June, they could have shortened preseasons and stuff like that and still get going on time.
Yeah.
So like them and baseball, baseball is obviously going to have a truncated season, but maybe not too truncated. So
well, I believe
sports in the best position, right?
Yeah, I believe with baseball, I read that they've sort of shifted everything through to July. Like they're sort of banking on this, shutting down long term. I could be mistaken on that date because I don't follow baseball too well, but I thought I had recalled seeing something like that. I mean, to really put things into perspective, the WWE announced today that their mainstay event, WrestleMania, is not taking place. Now, I don't think anyone in the right mind thought it would. I can't see any good from having an event in a stadium take place, but they're relocating it and having it still occur in a closed building, closed environment, because they want to provide entertainment. But even the WWE realizes that we gotta shift gears, do something different. And I know it's loosely a sport. Old school wrestling, I would say, was more a sport than new school wrestling.
Sure. I mean, on that, isn't now forgive me because I don't remember the difference between UFC and the other one.
Yeah.
But one of them is still going ahead.
Well, I think I believe UFC had an event this past weekend, but again, it was closed building.
Right.
And that could still take place because there's been arguments well, wait a minute, why aren't NHL teams playing in closed buildings? Why aren't NBA teams playing in closed buildings? Well, considering that you had, and again, this is all subjective to actual real science, but you had an NBA player test positive, and of all the players to test positive, it's the guy who thought it was a joke and made a big deal by manhandling all the reporters' equipment. A play-by-play or one of the media personnel for another team who happened to simply stay in the hotel room that this player, Gobert, had stayed in, this exact same room. So he leaves when the Jazz leave town, and then this sort of media guy, he checks in. He then tests positive. Now, that's not to suggest that the infection was directly from Gobert, but there's so many unknowns that at some point in time, you have to make a smart decision and say, yeah, we can't put these people in close proximity to each other because it's counter to what medical professionals and health professionals are saying is to maintain that 2 meters. And so closed buildings don't solve that. That just takes the general public out of the mix, but doesn't prevent the players from passing it around to then in turn their families. And that's where I think we have to understand is that, let's say, my family, it's myself, my wife, and baby Force. Let's say one of us is ill. There's a good chance it's probably going to, go through our household. As much as we would try to avoid it, it probably will. We might self-isolate, but will we self-isolate from other members of our immediate family? My mom and dad come over, or my sister or my brother. There's this chain that starts to take place. And unfortunately, we're just increasing the odds that others pick it up. So again, I think as tough as this decision was to completely shut down, it was probably the smartest one in light of the current situation.
Yeah, totally. We're told not to go out to bars and in large gatherings. Why would we be putting players at risk when they're literally charging up against each other, changing in the same changing room with like the sweat and everything like that. Not to mention like the possibility of like with like NHL, but definitely MMA and stuff. It's like blood, like
Well, yeah, it is
time.
a guaranteed mixture of bodily fluid. It even if it was just sweat.
Exactly. Like sweat even by itself is terrifying.
Right. So
just putting like, plus you can't just have the players. You've got the staff, you've got everyone surrounding the team, and then you would have to bring in arena staff into that, even just to play closed door game. Like, it's just so easily passed around. It's really not worth it.
No, not at all. And again, I mean, you and I we're both in agreement on this issue. I think that should be made very clear. It's just it is amazing how there are some who consider this another option. Plus, I mean, let's just look at society as a whole. The city of Vancouver today had to declare that bars are closed on St. Patrick's Day to ensure that people didn't go out for St. Patrick's Day.
I mean, did you see the pictures over the weekend from Boston?
No, I did not, but I can't imagine it was
lines and lines of people outside these bars.
There's the beaches in Florida right now, which are like full.
Crazy.
And I understand. Like, I'm not suggesting that someone doesn't go outside and go for a walk or get some air. I think there's
like you have to go out and get groceries. Like,
yeah,
those are necessities.
You don't go out for a pint or two with you and 400 other people and pack the closest Irish bar. Like, it's about being intelligent with the choices you make. But yeah, it is amazing. And unfortunately, we take a step further. There are those that question, the severity of it. Like, oh, it's just a flu. Well, while the symptoms may be like the flu, and if we were to go, and again, the numbers are still very early, they're changing. But let's say, just conservatively, that of those who are infected, 95% recover, which as a recovery rate is pretty darn good, all things considered, especially if we look at the number of people who unfortunately pass suffering from just influenza as we know it.
Yeah.
The thing to consider is that right now, the conservative number is that 10% of all people who are infected with COVID-19 disease, they require hospitalization. They require an expanded level of care. And our medical system cannot handle 10% of the population suddenly needing a hospital bed.
Yeah.
And so it's really, and we hear this term flattening the curve. It really is about trying to spread the rate of infection out so that the system itself doesn't fall apart. We've started to see that take place in Europe, like Italy. Spain is being hit hard now too. And they're yeah, and the medical systems, the hospitals, they are now getting to the point where I think I was reading an article where in Italy they're now going with military triage. And I don't fully understand the concept, but at a high level, military triage is not like our traditional triage where we show up at the hospital and they sort of determine the priority that you get in. Military triage is actually doing math. It's like, okay, we're going to go and treat those who are most likely to survive. And of those who are most likely to survive, there's even how many years of productive life do you have left?
Yeah, it's some dark times. My stepmom's a doctor. She's actually works at the hospital that's the Corona Center in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Because they just have really good isolation practices. It was the Ebola Center as well. But yeah, so I'm getting a bit of an inside look there. One of my best friends is a nurse at Burnaby. It's scary right now, and we haven't even reached the peak yet. So yeah, I mean, we don't want to lecture or we don't want to politicize anything. I just think it's trying to be about staying safe, and hockey's not a necessity, as much as it might feel like it sometimes. And we'll get it back.
Yeah.
I think we just have to get a bit more creative in what hockey content means.
Well, that's actually sort of a good segue as wrap up this episode. I sort of was sharing over the course of the weekend on Twitter. There are a number of Vancouver specific hockey podcasts and content creators out there that are looking to continue to ensure that you have a podcast to listen to on a weekly basis and create content in the absence of hockey. One that I'd like to sort of talk about is Trust the Process with Wyatt and Jordan, and they've been talking about creative things that they can do when it comes to sort of reliving, hockey moments. And in fact, I believe Jordan and Wyatt, they actually recreated an NHL season that was locked out by playing like, was it NHL? When was the last lockout? 07? I can remember.
Yeah. No, I think it was the 2012.
Was it 2012? Okay. It would have been 2012. But this is what we as content creators are looking. Engage with the community, and I would encourage you as our listeners to check some of them out. And I'm using Trust the Process as an example, but there are quite a few Canucks podcasts out there. I'm trying to actually curate a list of them, and I do plan on sharing it. It's not to suggest I'm hoping to promote other podcasts. I mean, I do want everyone to continue to tune into C4 each and every week, but let's be real. I mean, how many episodes can we go before Anna and Chris start talking about English words that Matt doesn't understand?
Oh yeah, talking code over him. Yeah, I mean, last episode, even though we didn't necessarily know a shutdown was coming, we talked about bringing C4 at the movies back. And now I'm working from home. That's definitely more of a possibility. In my self-isolation, I'm definitely going to be doing some of that. So,
I'm waiting for Bend It Like Beckham.
Okay, well, I'm doing that because I friggin' love that movie. I've seen it at least 10 times. It was filmed 2 minutes from where I grew up. Like, that movie is home to me. I will definitely do that. Okay, so that's a promise then, this week, sometime.
That's right. You heard it here first. C4 at the movies. Bend It Like Beckham with Anna Forsyth. You need to follow that hashtag C4 at the movies on A4Syth.
Do you know what I might do?
What might you do?
I might do. Well, this Wednesday, March 18th, I was meant to be at the Canucks Tampa game. I may watch Bend It Like Beckham over that time.
Ooh.
So 7 p.m. kickoff, puck drop, whatever you want to call it. C4 at the movies. Wednesday, March 18th. So if you're listening on a Tuesday, when the podcast comes out this week tomorrow,
I might do that myself.
My sassy in-game tweets. There we go.
Because
watching.
I was supposed to be at the Wednesday game too.
Well, there you go. I know everyone really misses me, talking about the player's hair and moaning about Tyler Myers. So instead, I'm going to be talking about Bend It Like Beckham, which is an excellent movie. And
I will be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that we do have some video game players in C4. Maybe we need to bring back C Fortnite, or I don't know what the catchy tag would be for the current Battle Royale that hit the scene, the Call of Duty Warzone Battle Royale, which I know for non-gamers you'd be like, what the hell? But no, it's just, I actually enjoy it, and I'm not a big fan of the Call of Duty sort of style of gameplay. I'm enjoying their Battle Royale. It's pretty cool. As Nexus is saying in patron chat right now, it's freaking awesome.
Okay, yeah, I'll leave the video game stuff to you guys, but yeah, we want to still carry on this community, whether we have hockey to watch every week or not. So
yeah. And our plan is to continue to record on a weekly basis, at least for the foreseeable future. Our episodes may become more like off the rails, simply because we can't fabricate NHL content that doesn't exist. I mean, it's just not our thing, but we're going to create content. We're going to have fun. We're going to foster the community. For those of you who are like, well, I hate this. I want more hockey content. There are other hockey podcasts out there that might be able to fill that void. I'm actually curious how the 2 sports radio stations in Vancouver are going to handle this. Sports radio in Vancouver, I think, was already, having an interesting go. I don't necessarily understand if Vancouver can support 2 sports-specific radio stations, and now they have no sports to talk about. So it'll be interesting to see how their approach is. I know, former host Clay was on 650 this morning.
Oh yeah, talking about what?
I don't know, parody songs or something. I didn't listen. He was on there.
Okay.
In fact, Clay is creating his YouTube series, and I think he's actually live streaming it now. It sounds like it'll be too late for those of you who are listening to this episode after we've recorded, but I think he actually is doing it Monday nights or something.
No, but you'd rather listen to us record.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's easier. You can be listening to us, while you're sequestered in the car trying to keep all the air out. I mean, you can't watch a YouTube video while you're driving down the street to the grocery store in the hunt for toilet paper that's gone missing.
Yeah, so we'll try and keep the mood up. At least, we had our practice last summer we went through the summer talking about hockey that wasn't, so.
Yeah. And if there is hockey news, to make it clear, we will talk about it. It's just.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we don't.
Like, if there's a morsel of Canucks or hockey content, we'll grab onto it. Like, if we find out that some random league has played a hockey game, then we're gonna be right on it. But yeah.
Well, wasn't a friend of the show, Joe Goldie, wasn't his pickup league still playing down in California at something?
Well, that's madness.
I'm trying to recall a conversation in C4 Discord.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that they're trying to be harder than NHL players, but whatever.
Go big, go home.
Uh-huh.
Be the next Florida man.
But really, guys, go home.
Yeah.
And stay there.
So that's actually a good segue. Any other words of wisdom you want to share with all of our listeners there, Anna?
No, just look after yourself, guys. We're still going to be on Discord a ton. Now that I'm working from home, I might be even more distracted by Discord during the day. So yeah, please be careful and hop on over to Discord and we'll kind of try and keep each other sane.
Yeah. And I'd like to echo those statements. I mean, be safe, be smart, take care of yourself. As we start to self-isolate, self-distance, I'm working from home at minimum the next 2 weeks. Our CEO came out and said that was the case. I can't even get into the office if I want to because my access card's been disabled. It's important to still maintain those connections. Pick up the phone, call someone. Don't just text. A text is good, but sometimes we need that voice connection. If distance is an issue, here in the C4 Discord, you can actually jump into, we actually have a channel, the Lower Bowl, that anyone can go into. You can jump into it and you can have a conversation. Our patrons...
I remember you guys really, really wanted that created, and now no one uses it. So This might be an ideal time to embrace it.
Yeah, and our patrons, they can always jump into Patron Studio. They can't talk. So again, use the Lower Bowl. And if for some reason we need more voice channels, I'd be happy to go get some more for a variety of different things. But, have those connections. You can actually have video conferencing with Discord as well. There's all sorts of other tools out there, but, have that connection. I think it would be really cool. And I've sort of been, trying to think this idea out, how we at C4 can try to, almost embrace the community a little bit more by using the technology. And I'm hoping to, someone had said, oh, who wants to organize a tweet up? Well, yeah, that's ironic. You can't do that now, but wouldn't it be cool if we could somehow get each other together and maybe it is like a C4 at the movies. We're all watching the movie and reacting together or something like that.
Yeah. So me and Chris will be watching Bend It Like Beckham tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I will be tweeting it because I'm just more entertaining than Chris. But
it's just I don't deny that fact. I think it's true. There's a reason why you have the keys to the Twitter account now. You're far more witty. You can always tell, who's behind the keys. Like if it's all like the lovey-dovey stuff, that's like me.
Yeah.
If it's like the sassy, witty, more engaging content, that's Anna.
Yeah. Oh, Nexus says there's an app that lets you watch movies together. That's cute.
Well, we'll
maybe that's for long distance couples or something.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Anna. I am taken. But
we can still enjoy a movie together.
Yeah, thank you. It'd be nice with distance between us. But on behalf of Matt, who unfortunately is not here, I'm @Lee_61. Adam, who showed up last episode and suddenly is gone again. Surprise, surprise. Adam McCarter at Adam FOC. Myself, Chris at Lightforce, and Anna at Force803. If you happen to tune in for your very first episode, like, what the heck is going on? Well, thank you. I hope you subscribe for more, but I can assure you we normally talk hockey, and all of our backlog of episodes can be found at c4discord.com as well as at Overtime Media, overtime.media. But signing off this very crazy, unexpected episode where we made magic happen just to still bring it to you virtually because we could not get in the hot box, I'm going to sign off with those magical 2 words, and that is, we're out.